We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
Throws toward the corner of the end zone. It is intercepted! Intercepted! The Ducks have the ball!
To the end zone! Touchdown, Oregon! Mariota dives! Touchdown! They hand it off straight out! C.J. Verdell wins the game for Oregon!
Inside the 10! A hat-trick, a touchdown from Justin Herbert! Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out, and that'll do it! Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon! They storm the field at Autzen!
All right, Duck fans, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Ducks Rising podcast, sponsored by Backer and Water Ave Coffee. My name's Zachary Neal, my co-host, Travis Rookley. Travis, what's up, man? How we doing?
Is this not the weirdest National Signing Day?
It's whatever. It's another day. It's just another day.
It's really too bad. I found myself thinking today, like looking back at the nostalgic, I don't know. For me, it was like 2010 to 2019, probably.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it even started to peter out there towards the end there. But man, I mean, if you were not following recruiting like 2005 to 2015, these days were the best.
Yeah, like it just so happens that we are recording on signing day today. Like, we didn't plan for this. We didn't say, oh, February 4th, we've got to get our pod out. Let's sign. It's like, oh, this is the day that worked for us, and it happens to be signing day. It's a little bit sad, but c'est la vie, I guess. As we record this, like I said, this day feels a little bit more irrelevant with the early signing period, but Oregon did add a few players. We're going to chat about that up at the top, but the meat of this episode is going to be about the depth chart for 2026. You and I both have put together our projected, lists, roster, whatever you want to call it, for the upcoming season, and we're going to go through them position by position. We are then going to close it out with some Autzen Airwaves. Sound good to you?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the recruiting. Oregon added another Anthony Jones. This one, a 4-star interior defensive lineman, not to be confused with Anthony Tank Jones, the 5-star edge rusher. They also signed 4-star running back Brandon Smith, who committed a few weeks ago. And then not long before we started recording, they got a commitment from Dayton Raiola. 3-star athlete quarterback is expected to play tight end. The younger brother, of course, of Dylan Raiola, the transfer portal quarterback from Nebraska. Any thoughts on those guys? Obviously, Oregon's class was pretty much done before this, but a couple of sprinkles on top.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raiola one, obviously, you can draw the lines there, and that one makes sense at a lot of levels when it comes to, coming along with his brother. But I think the other two takes are not just ones that you kind of throw in as random guys at the end of a recruiting cycle. Like, I think there are certainly traits and characteristics the staff likes about both of those guys. I think they happen to both obviously play positions that we lost players at in the portal, and I think just in terms of class spacing and stuff like that, they both make a lot of sense on that level. But I think specifically Smith at running back, long speed, stuff like that, I think he's a guy that certainly can be a contributor down the line here. And then anytime you have the chance to bring in a, 6'4", close to 300-pound guy on the defensive line who has some legit offers down there, and you never know how a guy's going to develop and pop at that position. And we see with just recruiting across the board now, you bring guys in as a freshman, you see who could be a contributor in the next 1 to 2 years, and if it's not going to be that guy, you find a good home for him, and he's able to get some reps somewhere else. I think this staff does a good job of kind of knowing early who's on the path to make an impact here and who's on the path to make an impact elsewhere, and they have honest conversations with these guys. So I definitely think, though, that Smith and Jones as late takes can be some of those guys that aren't just out the door in 2 years and can actually make an impact here.
Yeah, I liked the addition of Smith. I think we were both curious to see what they did at the running back position in the portal this year. With losing guys like Lamar and Harris and Hughes in the portal, it's like, yeah, you needed depth there. You feel great about Deere Hill and Jordan Davison. I still feel pretty good about Dwan Riggs. I know he was hurt this year. I know that he has more improvement to go, but I think that he's a talented player. We've seen some burst out of him before as a freshman. I think he can be a very nice Jaden Lamar role type, not the type of player, but at least have that third back role. So you didn't really need to go get a starter or a really meaningful guy in the portal at this position. So I like that they went with an incoming freshman and said, hey, we need another body here. Let's take a guy that we like, that we see is available, and see what he can do here. So I was a fan of that move. And then, of course, like you said, with the defensive line, if you have the opportunity to get a big guy like Anthony Jones, take it. They also got, the Derek Brown Jr. in the portal today from Howard. Sure. Like, I don't know. They need bodies there. Those guys can, maybe play a few snaps and Jones can develop into someone. I don't know. I've got no problems with what they did. None of it surprised me. I'm curious about, Dayton, just to see what happens. I know that didn't he used to be a much higher rated recruit? I thought there was much more buzz about him earlier in Dylan's career.
I haven't followed it super closely just because it seemed like Nebraska all along, but I know that there was early buzz talk, intentions around quarterback, but it seems like the reporting as of now is he'll play tight end or at least start there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the writing was on the wall, I think, when Dylan committed here, and I think that makes sense, especially with the scholarship limits up in the air now. I mean,
why not?
There used to be a lot of different moving parts you had to do, and you kind of had to get a little bit cute and creative at times to bring guys in. But I think the way the rules are set up now, I think it totally makes sense in these situations to bring in. And this isn't just like, this isn't a guy that didn't start in high school. Like, this is a good player that could certainly carve out a little role here. And I think, just back to running back with your point on Smith, I think that he provides that dynamic that Hill gave us this year of like that just straight long speed that I think we've missed a little bit in that room for a while. So when you look at, I think there were two kind of strategic additions there. You talk about Smith with some like long-term pop and speed that he might be able to eventually put on the field in like real reps. And then you brought in the Colorado transfer in Price, who
I forgot about him.
Can just, I think for me in that situation, that's just like a guy who can take some hits, which I think there's certainly a spot for. I mean, the last thing you want to be able to do is have to roll out, Jordan Davison in goal line in a game where you're up 21 in the fourth quarter, or take, any opportunity you can have to take some hits off of a guy like Davison and even Riggs. You saw how strategic they were with Dier's carries this year, where they happened within the game, where they happened on the field. So just having playable bodies in that room in a position where every year I feel like recently we've just been dinged up at the end of the year is going to be beneficial.
Well, and with Price too, I believe like the pass blocking thing will be big. I don't know how good of a pass blocker he is. He's a really veteran player. He's big. I believe he's 215, something like that. He's a big guy.
Yeah, big kid.
I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him in because they knew that, hey, Jordan is maybe our 1A. We don't want to put him in a ton of pass blocking roles. Dier needs to improve pass blocking, obviously. Like, this is a guy that we can rely on, we know, on third down. Come in and just, help Dante out a little bit. So maybe they don't limit him just to that, but I think that's probably one of the main reasons they brought him in.
Yeah, just like playable bodies to do the job, take some hits if they need to, get a couple yards if you need it. I mean, I like the way this room stacks up in terms of like that thunder lightning dynamic, and hopefully next year, if things go to plan, we're playing in a lot of games that are, we're trying to put away early in the third quarter, into the third quarter a little bit. And there's a difference between garbage time and just like, we don't want guys to take a bunch of hits time. And so I think there's where you look at a situation where if Riggs and Price can just be like playable, solid backs where the job can get done, then you can limit what Davison and Hill are having to take on as the season goes.
And we'll talk about it more soon with our depth chart, but this is just a exciting room beyond Hill and Davison. Like, I just like a lot of the guys in there. One thing that Marshall talked about today on their signing day show, that like, I do enjoy, the one thing that the NCAA kind of has gotten right with the calendar is that there is no more second portal period. Like, the roster is the roster right now. I like that they've got this stretch run now where they don't have to worry about guys leaving. They don't have to worry about holes to fill after spring ball. There are negatives to that. Obviously, if you find a hole that you need to fill in spring ball, you don't have that opportunity, but we trust these guys to have this roster where it needs to be already. I just like the idea that now they have the entire spring, entire summer with this group, and it's like, all right, this is it. This is what we're doing. Let's go.
Yeah, and I will say on that, I'm curious to see if someone's going to step up and challenge this thing. I think we're in a pretty good spot right now, Oregon, where I don't think we need a whole lot out there, but I would be pretty surprised if we don't see a quarterback or someone else challenge that portal ruling and try to hop in there and do something like Mensa did. Or
I guess I was gonna say would they, but they just do it.
I mean, you do what Xavier Lucas did, which was they never entered him in, and he just unenrolled and went and enrolled at Miami and played and said, "Stop me." So, I would honestly, it's just out of control. I would be stunned if we go the whole off season and like this is truly the end. Like I really think guys are gonna try to pull stuff and hop in, but I think your point totally remains that, here's what we're rolling with. You never see if you might be a, guy or two pop up here and there, especially a grad transfer or something like that. I know I have a little more flexibility, but I think another thing Marshall said, correct me if I'm wrong, 23 early enrollees.
Yep.
So
still
once
waiting
again,
on Manny and Lott, and I think one other they said, and Smith, yeah.
It'd be nice to have those two.
I wish those two were there, yes, but I like having 23 at least.
And so is Lott still planning summer? Because I've heard conflicting things on him. I heard the original plan was to try to come do track here in the spring, but it sounds like that's fell through, and maybe
I
he's
thought he
stay
was
at
always
home for
doing track at high school.
Got it. Okay.
But I don't know. I'm not sure. Take him when you can get him, I guess.
Either way, we'll talk about those guys here soon, I think, when it comes to depth chart. But the fact that you're getting 23 guys on campus ready to roll now, getting to know the playbook, continuity-wise, getting with Coach Love, all that's huge.
I also liked, I don't know if you heard Dan's segment, but talking about the coordinators, like, we don't just hand these jobs to anyone. Like, I know it felt like he was trying to put out some fires because some fans have been a little bit, I don't know, nervous, skeptical, whatever word you want to use about the Drew Maringer hire.
All those words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it felt like that was his way of saying, like, yeah, I hear you. Like, trust me. Like, we know these guys. We know they're the right guys for the position. Like, we don't give these jobs to anyone. These guys have earned it. You don't see what they do behind closed doors. Like, they're ready. I heard that, and I mean, we are already in the camp of like, yeah, sure, that maybe is not what I would have done, but sure, I trust you. Hearing him say that, it's like, yeah, all right, I don't really have many concerns at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to keep reminding ourselves, no matter the skepticism that wants to grow in my head, it's like nobody has more on the line than them, and nobody knows these guys better than them. So, as much as we can question or hope there were some veteran voices or other things, I got to imagine we're going to bring in some new analysts that we'll kind of hear trickle out throughout the offseason. So I think that may put some of those experienced concerns to bed. We'll see what shakes out there, but no one has more financial, emotional, every kind of incentive possible than Dan and Marshall and everyone to get this one right. So, I mean, it's not like they didn't talk to people. Yeah. So it's one thing if you were just promote Drew, I'm going to speak to nobody else. He's the guy. I have to imagine and could say almost for a fact they spoke to outside guys. So if Drew's the best guy, he's the best guy.
And I think it was last episode that we said we need the sign up in our background that says, just trust the staff. Yep. I told you before we recorded, my wife and I are moving into a new house, so I'll have a new podcast studio in the coming months. And I think I might buy or commission a sign that says just trust the staff. So once an episode, we can just tap it. And
good housewarming gift for you.
Yes, that's it. Absolutely. All right. Do you have anything else on recruiting, transfer portal, any of those topics?
No, let's get to the depth chart.
All right, we will do our depth chart in a second, but first, Travis, I had a great conversation with our guys at Backer today, and I am thrilled to hear that a certain black jacket is en route to my house. I feel like a kid was just waiting for Christmas morning. I'm just going to be sitting watching for the delivery truck every day now. I can't wait.
I was wondering when you were going to say something. I got my notification today between 2:15 and 4:15 tomorrow from the old UPS. So
let me check my email.
Yeah, I know we've been hyping up the black jacket, which is finally in commission, and I know both of us are fired up for it. We still got a little. I know it's felt like spring recently in Oregon with this hit of weather, but we know the rain's coming, and no better spot to be than that new black jacket. I'm just trying to. We got to connect with the staff and make sure we got a lot of wear black games next fall, so we can get the jacket, raincoat, get everything in the rotation.
I just can't wait to golf in it. I think it's going to be a very nice golfing jacket for this spring for sure.
Place All to right. be.
Depth chart. This is fun. I know you love this as much as I do, and we both put some real effort into these projections. So I'm sure that we will probably disagree on some, but that's where the fun comes in. But let's go through this position by position, name our two deep, and then after, just talk about some certain players to be aware of that may not be in the two deep right now, but could definitely play their way in or just have a role, because we saw this team go 3, 4, even 5 deep at certain positions last year. That sound good?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, we will start easy, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback. I think we both have Dante Moore as QB1, and then I have Dylan Raiola as QB2, assuming he is healthy, which sounds like he's going through off-season workouts, and the rehab process is going well from what I've been told.
Yeah, I know some other people out there have reported similar to that they think he'll be at least pretty much a full go now / definitely a full go by the spring, which I know is that important time when it comes to install and different things like that. So I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better 1-2 in the country. I don't know that I trade those top 2 guys for any other quarterback room out there. We're obviously invested heavily into the position in terms of resources. And it's great to be in a spot where, you got arguably the best quarterback in the country in Dante. You're foreseeing a good chunk of games that get out of hand, hopefully pretty early next year. You give Raiola the keys in the second, maybe third, fourth quarter, and get him a bunch of reps, and then you go into 27 in a really good spot. So I don't think you could really draw this room up to be any better realistically the way the sport's lined up right now.
I am not counting on them putting Dylan in backup roles just after what we saw this past year and waiting for Austin or waiting for, Moga, and we always got Brock. It's like, I hope that happens. Yes, that'd be logical. You'd think that would be the thing that happens, but I'm not counting on it just knowing this staff.
I think the difference we have, my optimism comes from the difference now is I think we clearly brought in Raiola with the intention of him being the starter in 27. Whether we were sold a bill of goods this year or not, we can say confidently now that seemingly was not the plan moving forward this year. So I'm gonna trust what's in that room. What Raiola gave up to come here tells me that that's the plan in 27. And if that's the plan in 27, the redshirt rule gets lifted. It's like, why is he not playing 9 games this year?
Okay, but we could have said the exact same thing about Dante behind Dylan. And how many games did Dante play? How many passes did he throw in his first year with Oregon? It wasn't many. There was a lot of blowouts where he was still, Dante was on the sideline. Dylan was playing late into the third and fourth quarter. So I don't know. I believe you. Like I think it should logically happen. I just know in several months the whole Oregon fan base is once again going to be like, where's Dylan? Why are we not seeing him? And then Brock Thomas is going to trot out there in the third quarter.
I think the only thing I can just wishfully hope for is that Dylan year. There were some offensive growing pains earlier in that year. Continuity-wise, things weren't the same. So I'm just going to hope that the combination of continuity with Dante, Raiola clearly being the guy in 27, red shirt rule change, new OC, I hope we get a full dose of him.
Anything else on quarterback? It feels like Brock is number 3, Achille number 4, probably, and then we don't have Beaver anymore. But
I think there's been a lot of discussion about Achille. I get a lot of every time I post something on Twitter about quarterbacks, like I get these same people like spamming me about Achille is that next dude. Like, trust me. Nobody would love more for Achille to be the next dude. That would be awesome for the university, the program, everything, to have a legacy guy come in and be that dude. He hasn't been so far. He definitely could be.
True freshman.
He's going to be given opportunities to do that, but he's also not going to be handed it. So
correct.
There's no animosity out there. Everyone wants this thing to happen for him, but to act like he's being shorted or not given every opportunity, like if he's that guy, he'll compete and he'll win that job. But just handing a guy a job to a freshman and not bringing anyone else to compete for the job is silly.
Running back, your 1 and 2, or maybe your 1A, 1B, however you want to put it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Davison Hill. coming back this year as sophomores. I think, like we talked about earlier, complementary skill set is pretty unique there and special when it comes to both of those guys. So I think the goal throughout the year, just like it's been the last 3 years, and hopefully we have better luck with it, is just to keep them healthy throughout the season. That's where our conversation earlier about Riggs and Price and those other guys come into play. But I think as far as a 1-2 tandem go, and in terms of those like strengths countering each other and being a really complementary pair, I don't know that you can do much better.
Completely agree. However you want to list them, 1 and 2, 1A, 1B. I think that's correct. I am, as far as just names to know, I'm super excited about this position because I am super excited for Tre'Davious Ball. I just remember back to seeing him at the Saturday Night Live camp, I believe in 24. It was right after he committed, and it was just like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. And he was playing receiver then. He wasn't even, it's 7-on-7. They're not running the ball. But the stuff that he did, and then I was talking to our guy Kenyon Barner at the, I think it was at the Peach Bowl, and we were just talking about Tre'Davious, and he's like, I think he might be better than Davison or Hill. Like, he thinks he can be that guy. He said that he wants to play wide receiver just because he can be one of those guys, like one of those slot receivers. But I'm just so excited to see him, what he can do with the ball in his hands.
Well, it sounds like between him and Hill, they both have some of that versatility where you can see them do some of the things Kenyon did, which is like play out of the slot a little bit, play in that 21 look out of the backfield. It wouldn't shock, I don't think, either of us to see either of those guys, Hill and Ball, do a little bit of the Byron Marshall plan where you're just like trying to find ways to get those guys the ball, given their receiving skills and how electric they can be with the ball in their hands. So I'd like to see more of that from Hill anyways. I thought this year we just needed to look for more chances to just get him in space. And so with both those guys back there now, and then you complement it with Davison and Riggs, who both are just like a little more just like shifty, natural running backs, but don't bring that necessarily like home run speed dynamic. I think the room is in a really good spot.
I feel like Riggs is the wild card going into this year. Like, going into last year, there was a ton of hype about him. Like, just because we'd seen him from a little bit, there was kind of an opening in the room. We didn't know that, either of the true freshmen were going to be what they were. Then he got hurt, and he spent a lot of the year hurt. So I love the fact that he didn't transfer. I love the fact that he's here again. That was, I would not have been surprised if he transferred just because it seemed like he had, maybe a clearer path to playing time elsewhere. But I'm very just excited to see what he can do because we've seen it before. We've seen him flash. If he's healthy, how big of a role can he get here?
I think we have to be optimistic about the fact that he, to me, is clearly the one that the staff wanted to keep because they could have offered that third running back role to kind of any of those guys that transferred out. And that's a real role. I mean, being the third running back is, you're getting true reps on any good team. So I think the fact that when you look at Hughes and Lamar, Harris, and Riggs, you had 4 guys there, and Riggs was the one that we kept. So that tells me that, they believe in his potential. They believe in some of that stuff that we heard early on about him, and hopefully he'll come in with full health this year. I know that was a little bit of an issue, and be that guy, because you really do need like 3 that can really tote the rock in real time at a minimum.
Completely agree. All right, let's move on to the receiver position. How did you do this? Did you break it down with X, Z, and Y, or did you just go 3 wide receivers?
I just did kind of my top 3. I figured we'd talk about kind of where we could see them a little bit, but I just went kind of top 3 and then that next group behind them.
Okay. I broke it down into X, Y, and Z. So for fans,
let's go your way.
Your X receiver typically is, and please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm misunderstanding it, but X receiver typically more of your straight line guy on the outside, your burner, your Troy Franklin, kind of your, AJ Brown type, the guy who's like Malik Benson this past year was like the X. Your Z is a little bit more of your route runner, like your DeCorian Moore, why am I forgetting? It's like a Devonta Smith, like that type of player, and then your Y is your slot guy, your Tez Johnson, your Wes Welker, your guy who lines up on the inside. Do you have the same understanding?
Yeah, I honestly don't know terminology to that level.
Okay.
I know at Oregon, I typically just group it into like inside outside. So
okay.
I think the terminology is certainly correct there. The way I think about the Oregon room is like, who are going to be your guys that are mostly playing outside, who are going to be your guys that are mostly playing inside. For me, I think DeCorian and J-Mac are your clear outside guys.
I have
early
them
in
at
the
X
year.
and Z. Yeah.
I think there was some talk early in November into December about like bringing in another A-plus dude on the outside, but I think McClellan's emergence was just incredible as the season went on. I mean, that guy made as good a catches as you'll see at that position, some of them counting and some of them not as the season went. So I think those two are the clear guys on the outside. Obviously, Evan Stewart being a bit of the wild card. I know both of us heard throughout the offseason coming into this year that there were some plans to kind of move him around the field a little bit. So for me, I couldn't tell exactly whether I wanted to designate him in the slot, but I think between those top three and then you bring in a guy like Iverson Hooks in the slot as well, I think those are the guys I would consider like the above the line. I can for sure count on them to be contributors.
Yeah, it feels like you got 4 players for 3 spots. I think that's kind of where we're ending up right now. I put out my depth chart projection, I think a week or so ago on DucksWire. I honestly had Iverson Hooks starting in the Y in the slot, and I had, I think, Evan Stewart as a backup to DeCorian in the Z spots. But that, these guys are going to put them on. It doesn't matter what position they play. They're going to put them out there. I mean, maybe Iverson, he's not going to play the X. I don't think he's going to move around. He seems like a slot guy.
Yeah.
But it feels like, for the most part, they're going to get the best guys on the field. Those 3, those 4, probably the top 4. Where are you going after that? Who are your 5 and 6?
Man, it is a wild card after that to
That's
me.
where it opens up.
Totally. I had heard a lot of positive things about Dylan Gresham coming into this year. I had heard he was pushing probably to be near that 2 deep and just got decimated by a pretty brutal injury, I think in fall camp. So
yeah, he had that neck injury.
He's around, and I think if things still trend in the right way and he can bounce back from that injury, I think he'll be there. And then you just go to a bunch of really special freshmen that Gatlin Bear being the biggest wild card for me. I don't know if he's going to need a year or not. Kind of depends on what he's been up to for the last couple years, which none of us truly know. I know he's been kind of truly off the grid serving his mission. So that's a wild card for me. And then the other name I would just like list there, we mentioned him earlier. Jalen Lott is an A-plus athlete, like bloodlines, family, everything. I mean, he's as dynamic as it comes as receiver. I know ended up as a 5-star by a couple of these services. So that's a guy, I think if he can learn playbook, time is the concern for me when it comes to him, given he'll just be like a regular enrollee. But if that's a guy who can pick up things quickly, which a lot of receivers do and play early, then I think he'll be heard from pretty soon.
Yep, I've got those names as well. It's, predicting right now, it's a crapshoot. We've not seen these guys' plays. I predicted Gatlin as the backup over Gresham, but that's just because, size, and I think that Gatlin is healthy. I don't know what Gresham's status was. He was still in neck brace, during the bowl games that we saw. So, but then, Jalen Lott, who I'm very excited to see him as well. Going to tight end.
Yep.
All right. I think it's easy to say.
I don't think we're going to disagree here.
Yeah. Jamari number 1. I think Andrew Olesh number 2. Kendre could push him for sure. But those feel like the 3. And then I forget the
Marcus Dixon.
Marcus Dixon, thank you, the Clemson transfer. I think he'll be more of an inline blocker. I don't think he's going to get a ton of receptions or targets at this point, especially when you have those 3 up top. But for me, it's Jamari, Andrew, Kendre. I would accept Jamari, Kendre, Andrew, but I think Jamari is number 1.
Totally. I mean, Jamari is up there with anyone in the country. I don't know that you have a slam dunk of a guy you'd trade for him right now when you're looking across the country in terms of tight ends, especially as he came on it as the season went. Yeah, after that, I think it just depends on kind of what you're looking for from whatever depth chart we're trying to put out. So I think if we're looking for a true 12 inline blocker, what's things going to look like from that point, then yeah, I think Dixon is probably the early lean transfer from Clemson, just more experience, a little more beefy than these other 2, has played at this level and has a little more weight in the blocking game. But I think if we're talking about 2 elite athletes at the position, height, speed, athleticism, catch radius, all that, I don't think you can do much better than back-to-back 5 stars in Olesh and Harrison. And Harrison specifically, I mean, freaky basketball skills. I could see him being early in the season, like a red zone target or something like that. It'll depend. I think for me, the question will be how much are those guys going to be like gadgets early in the year versus true contributors? And that will all come down to their blocking. If they can put on some weight in the offseason and become like true game-changing blockers or even just competent blockers, then you can roll them out there in 12 like you saw this year with Kenyon and Jamari, and you're really rolling. But one way or another, I think one of those two will be heard from at a minimum just as a target, maybe in the red zone or something like that, where you can use that catch radius and that height that they have as a weapon.
Offensive line, I think this is where potential disagreements may come. Left tackle, let's start there. What do you got?
Fox Crater, I think it's pretty obvious. I never want to say slam dunk, but if I had to, I'd put him at 75% and the rest of the field all combined at 25. So I think he's the clear leader at that position.
Who's your number 2 there? Because Fox is also my number 1. I agree.
It's hard because I think of the other 5 tackles at play all in contention at right tackle, so it's tough to go one spot or the other. I just listed Trent Ferguson because I know he's worked there in the past. But when we talk about right tackle, left tackle, it might be worth just talking about the tackles altogether. I mean, you got this kind of group of guys, some very young, some more experienced, that have all been discussed in different ways. So
let's do that. Let's say left tackle, right tackle, who are your starters, and then we'll go into backups.
So I was trying to divide the pie chart at right tackle because I think we talked about this previously. I think the 6 guys in play at that position.
Yep.
I am going with my highest percentage of the pie chart, 30%, and I'm going to go with Nacho.
Really? Wow, right tackle.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming. Okay.
I just think traits-wise, size, athleticism, what he's done at some of these all-star games, the way he's getting talked about. Is he the best guy on absolute day one? I'm not positive of that, but I think you can make the strong argument he'd be the best guy for sure by October 15th. And if it's close enough and that's the case, I think you might just roll with him.
I think that's fair. What did I write down? I've got a guy in my head, but I forget what I wrote down on Duckswire. Yeah, I put Janoris Wilson. That seems like probably the easiest answer. We've seen him play a bit, but he's been mostly that 6th man that this team likes to use when they don't have enough spots for everyone. I don't know. I just like him. He seems like the most experienced guy there. But he's definitely going to have his work cut out for him, holding off the other guys out there. So my faith is in him early, but I agree with you. Like, I will not at all be surprised if someone else beats him out. As backup at left tackle, I have Zaire Addison.
Okay.
You?
Yeah, I think he's right there. So I had Trent as my backup at left, and then I had Wilson as my backup at right.
Okay.
But I think they're all part of this group with Trent Ferguson, Wilson. Kawika Rogers has played some tackle in his time at Oregon. Addison, like you mentioned. And then you have these 2 freshmen in Nacho and Tommy Tofi, who has been rising up the rankings, playing tackle, like doing well, holding up against some really, really touted edges. So I think they're going to give every opportunity to these freshmen to earn the job. And I think it's going to be one of those situations where you're like, do you go with a guy who's played a little bit and has some experience under his belt but may lack the upside versus do you just shoot your shot and have some early growing pains and roll from there? It's going to be interesting with how the schedule shakes out, like what direction they go. I
didn't realize until today how big Tofi was. Like, listening to Drew talk about him, because you talk about Nacho and he's like, 6'7", 375, just monster. And then Drew was saying that Tofi is 6'6.5". I think he said 370. It's just like, oh my God. There. He's basically just the same size and just that half an inch. It's like, what does that matter, you know? Yeah, incredible. Like, if those are the future left and right tackles at Oregon, good Lord. that'll be really interesting. All right, moving inside to guard.
I had Dave Yulee, returner at right guard, and then Douglas Utu, redshirt freshman, starting at left guard.
I have the exact same thing. Backups.
Once again, it was hard for me to know who might kick inside. I had a couple people I trusted, not affiliated with Oregon, but just who had watched Michael Bennett, who they brought in from Yale, mention that they could see him being sort of a swing tackle and also push inside. So I actually ended up listing him as a backup at right guard. I think he's a guy that can kind of play all over a little bit. And then my backup at left guard ended up being Quika Rogers.
Hey, we did it again. Exact same thing. I like it.
Love it.
And then center, obviously, Poncho is going to be the starter. It will be interesting to see who plays behind him now that Charlie Pickard is no longer with the program. I think they feel really good about Devin Brooks. Bryce Bolton has been in that position before. Kaloy Kelly, the incoming true freshman, can be in that position as well. I don't think he'll play much this year as a true freshman, but there are some names to know. But with Poncho, it's like at the quarterback position with Dante. Like, you're kind of set there at number one, and we'll just see who gets those blowout snaps after that.
I think it could end up, depending on the situation, actually being Dave Yulee. I know he's worked there a little bit.
Yeah,
I know he's worked there in the past, and I think that given if the depth shakes out to be what we think it is at guard, which is better and more experienced than at center, I could see a situation where if Poncho needed to miss a game or something, you push Dave over to center, and then you've got some guards. I think you feel fine rolling out there with an Utu Rogers, for example, given how much he's played, versus maybe you don't feel great about throwing a first-time guy out there at center. So it'll be interesting to see how that tracks. I just know he was getting some reps there and snapping the ball last fall.
Agreed. All right, flip over to the defense side.
Yeah.
Okay, I did this with nose tackle and defensive tackle. You can do DT. Teams don't play a normal, in the old days you had a 4-3 defense. That's what they played. Oregon plays 4-3, 3-4, 5-2. Like, they move around. So, I actually listed, my depth chart has 12 positions, because you can say that there are 12 positions on the defense. They just don't always run them. Sometimes on third down they have an extra strong side linebacker. It happens. So defensive nose tackle, I've got Bear Alexander. I'm assuming you have the same.
Yeah, I think those four across the board are pretty obvious, as we saw.
Yeah, let's just do it that way.
Who decided to leave?
Yeah, Bear Alexander, Amari Washington, Mateo Uiagalelei, and then Tatum Tuioti will be your starting defensive line. Probably if not the best, the second best defensive line in the nation next year, I think, at least at the start.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of setting a floor, consistency, all that stuff, they are right up there with anyone. I think the thing I'm looking for from those guys is just a little more, I don't know, let's just call it game wreckerness from them. Just splash plays, sacks, turnovers, twitchiness, getting in the backfield. I think we missed some of what Derek Harmon provided from the inside in 24, the type of stuff KT provided off the edge, back in 2019. So I think that, to me, is the next step that those guys can get to.
All right, and then behind them, this is where it gets a little interesting, because like you said, there was a lot of turnover this year with, Teal Gray, Terrence Green, Jericho Johnson, Ashton Porter. A lot of guys transferred out once those four guys all returned. So I currently have, at least on the interior, I have Matthew Johnson and Aiden Breland as my backups.
Yep, I think those two are right. I think of it as a group of three between those two, and then the North Carolina transfer, DeAndre.
DeAndre, I think that's, yeah.
DeAndre Robinson. I think those guys are your cycle through on the interior, and we'll see if some younger guys push for those spots. But I think that's, depending on passing situation, run situation, I think those are going to be the bodies you see, especially first off the bench there.
Curious to see what Tony Cumberland does, incoming true freshman, former 5-star that fell down the rankings a little bit, but transferred to Willamette, has been in Eugene for a couple of years, has been around this program. He was the longest standing commit in the 2026 class. He seems like a guy that's not going to take much time to get up to speed. So he's a big body, and sometimes they may need bodies. So I want to see if he can kind of be that, the Matthew Johnson of next year and get some early run.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see who the staff decides to shout out in these media availabilities and stuff like today. And I know that Cumberland and Tank Jones were two guys defensively that were mentioned as guys that can contribute early and have already been around the team and, could see pushing. So I think that I think we have to remind ourselves that with some of those entries like Gray and Green and Porter and Purchase, like we had the opportunity to probably have some conversations around what it would have meant to keep them. And there comes a point where you look at what you have as starters and you look at what you have coming in behind them and you trust that. So I think that the fact that I don't want to say necessarily let them all go, because I think there was a want to retain them. The fact that they all ended up leaving tells you, A, they feel good about Matthew Johnson, as you mentioned, priority to keep Aylin Breland, I think a priority to keep Elijah Rushing, who we'll probably talk about in a minute. But then I think they feel good about Tank and Cumberland coming in early and playing. So it's never ideal to lose your whole backup, hockey line like that. But if there's any, staff to trust to refill those bodies on the line, it would be ours.
And then technical term, defensive end, I've got Mateo behind him. I got Elijah Rushing. And then at Jack linebacker, Tatum behind him, I think Nasir Wyatt. Would you agree?
Yep. Yeah, right there with you. Same thing. I had another group of three, so I had Nas, Elijah, and then Tank Jones there. I think he's going to be another one that we're going to see early.
And you can also say, this is where that 12th position comes in, where you want to call Nasir a strong side linebacker or a third down rusher, like whatever you want to call it. Like, he's the starter there, and then I've got a backup for him as Tank Jones. Like, those feel like your third down, pin your ears back, get after the quarterback rushers. But yeah, I think once you get those guys in there, I'm also curious to see. It's probably too early for someone like Prince Tavizone, who obviously even reclassified. He should be going into a senior year, but those are just some young guys out here, young names to know that will be interesting to see if they can make any headway in the depth chart. Maybe get one of those late game snaps under their belt.
Matthew Johnson was not the most highly touted guy coming into this year, and he was a name we heard early and often last year. In January, I remember hearing his name coming up as a guy that's already put on a bunch of weight. So you never know which of these guys gets in a real strength and conditioning program and kind of pops and takes things quickly. But we're going to need, my bet would be on Cumberland and Jones, but we're going to need some of these freshmen to step up and be contributors, and that's kind of the case across the sport right now with guys aren't wanting to sit around and wait to play, so you got to bring in guys that are ready to go.
Your two linebacker spots, I think we both locked down Jerry Mixon as one of the starters. It's interesting to go to the other one. I currently have Devin Jackson written down, but I would be very willing to change that and not surprised if he's not one of the starters and happens to be someone like Gavin Nix or any of the young guys, Braden Platt, Dylan Williams. Kamar Mathuti's gone, but one of those guys.
Yeah, I threw it right out there and went with Platt as my starter next to Mixon. I just think what he brings, some of the stuff we heard from him coming out of last year, some of the small glimpses we had. I think with a year of full health, which is my caveat, I think there's definitely a strong possibility that he's running out there with Mixon as 1A, 1B next fall, and then you've got Devin Jackson as a guy that if he can put it together, got every tool in the world as a backup. You mentioned Gavin Nix. He's one that we've heard a lot of good things on, and I think he pushes. And if you told me he was the guy next to Mixon day one, I wouldn't be surprised either. So to me, I kind of think about it as Jerry Mixon's on his own tier, and then you've got this group of four guys between Nix, Platt, Jackson, and Dylan Williams, to where I could see any of them pushing early. And I think given what happened this year in the fall, health is obviously going to be the number one important thing.
Yeah, this is a position where I wouldn't say most excited, but one of the positions I'm most excited to see what it looks like this fall and what the development is like, just because we thought they were going in the portal. For the second year straight, we thought they were going on the portal to find more guys and to get a true green dot guy. And they didn't. And they're, once again, just kind of, putting their money where their mouth is and saying, hey, no, we like these guys. We like our development. We think these guys, if they stay healthy, are going to be really good. So let me tap the trust the staff sign again and just say, all right, well, we'll see it.
Yeah, there's just no I wouldn't say there was just like a total slam dunk portal guy makes perfect sense to where I was like, okay, the fact that we did not go after him tells me everything. But there were, all league guys out there. Yeah. There's bodies, though. There's all league guys. There's guys who have made an impact. There's guys who are going to get drafted. There are guys who've played in systems that are similar to ours. There were bodies out there that would have made sense if we felt like we needed it. And so, once again, I came back to it. I questioned it. We'll have our answer next fall, but if the guys who were invested most didn't feel like they needed to do it, like, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
All right, going out to cornerback. Feels obvious that Brandon Finney is one of your starters. Yep. I still had Ife Obadegwu as the second starter. I know that some people are, curious if that's going to be the guy. There are a million young, talented guys, former 5-stars, who could take over that role. I still think the experience and the veteran nature that Ife brings to the table will have him once again be the starter next to Finney.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to linebacker. I'm with you that I listed Ife and Finney, but I think of the position once again as like top list A guy and Finney, and then you kind of add these next 3 guys. So to me, I grouped together Aaron Scott, transfer from Ohio State, Ife, and then Naeem Offord. I think any of those guys, if you told me were pushing and they were the ones ultimately out there day one, I could see that. We know our room likes to rotate a little bit. So this year you saw Theron Johnson and Offord, getting real reps in games. These weren't just courtesy. These are like real snaps as the game goes. So I think you could see any of those 4 guys be the starter. And then at the same time, I think depending on what shakes out, and if you see, wow, like Ife has taken a huge jump, but we also need to get Naeem Offord on the field, I think you look at a position like star and maybe you get a little creative there and you could see a guy push there as well.
Yeah, curious about Dorian Brew. Curious about Devon Benjamin, who we've heard a ton as a recruit that he can be a really good player. I don't know if he'd be a cornerback or a star, which we'll get to soon. But just some names to get out there. Going back to safety, Coy Parrish, obviously, as the Dylan Thieneman replacement. That feels easy. I still have Aaron Flowers back there. Again, I'd be very open to a world where Trey McNett surpasses him now that he's healthy and takes over that position. Maybe you move Aaron into that third safety role that Dylan played last year too. But again, it feels like you've got 2 to 3 safeties that can start there, and I think they're going to try and get them all on the field when they can.
Completely agree. I am curious what they'll do to be creative to get McNutt's talent on the field, because that's a guy that if he's back and healthy, which I have no reason to believe he isn't. I mean, he's kind of like a plus talent for that position in terms of just what he brings and athleticism and his speed and everything. Like, he's a very rare breed at that spot. So I don't want to predict he's going to take Coy's spot. I don't think you can bring in a guy like Parrish and probably pay him what we needed to keep him away from other schools and not have that guy be a starter. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said, is there more 3 safety look? Are you moving one of these guys? Are they playing a little bit in the slot? I mean, there was some scuttle I had heard about, does Flowers move down a little bit given how successful he is in the box and as a tackler, physical guy down there. So Hampton will have his way with all these dudes. And as you mentioned, we got another group of young guys coming along with Benjamin and Brew, and it just keeps rolling.
What about the nickel spot for you? What do you have there?
I listed Carl Williams, transfer from Baylor, as the starter, just given what we had kind of heard so far in terms of the plan and his tape from 24. He missed the entire 25 season with an injury, but that seemed like a natural fit. But as I mentioned a second ago, Dorian Brew, as the year went on last year and he got healthy, I think he was pushing pretty strongly for that role. I think the fact that Dalen Austin got up and got out of here tells you that he clearly didn't think it was his job to have, or he's probably still in the room. So I think between Brew and then you mentioned Devon Benjamin, I could see any of those 3 I mentioned, Williams or those 2, starting day one.
Yeah, I think Brew could be there as well. I think Carl Williams is probably your starter just from what I expect. And then I would want to see maybe someone like Naeem if he needs to find a role, and then maybe someone like Devon Benjamin. I think there's the talent there.
Yeah. And I'll just say with all these, now that we've gotten through it, I mean, there is going to be some position where every person like us who's half educated about this stuff thinks it's going to be a guy and is saying all off season, it's going to be this guy, it's going to be this guy. And it's going to come day one and there's just going to be a different guy out there. And it's probably going to be the right guy. I mean, I know a lot of us weren't sure that Kennedy was going to be the guy this year. I know different ones of us questioned whether Benson would be that guy, or we thought Matt Bedford was going to start this year. So it'll be interesting to see once the games actually start where we were wrong. All right, first question here from Trevor. On paper, how does the 2 deep for the 26-27 season compare to last year's 25-26 team? Does this coming season feel like a stronger overall team compared to last year?
I think so. I mean, off the bat, you just have a lot fewer questions. Like, we just knew who the starters were, who the starters likely are going to be here. Even if we don't know the exact positions, like with wide receiver or, offensive line, like we know who the guys are going to be and they'll mix and match. But I think so. I mean, I think I can feel confident in saying this is a better / more talented team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You know who these guys are. You've seen them perform before, so they've got a good track record.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going through position by position. Where could you say that we are worse? Is the only spot maybe tight end? Just given we had Kenyon and Jamari. I mean, it's not by much. Yeah. If it is, it probably is. I mean, you lose a first round tight end. Let's just say it's a slight downgrade. You want to say offensive line given what you lose, but I mean, I think about our biggest games, like it wasn't awesome from World and Harkey in those spots.
But,
so
interior offensive line, like guard, I'm not sure you're gonna get what Pregnon gave you.
That's true. That's an easy one. You downgrade one spot at guard, but you improve the other theoretically just with year to year. At tackle, I mean, it'll just depend on how those guys look. So I think if anything, and you're being as honest as you possibly can, you're downgrading very, very slightly at tight end and offensive line, and you're upgrading everywhere else. So to me, that feels like better.
I would maybe bring up linebacker too, just because I think that Mixon will be everything and maybe more that Bryce was. I don't know if whoever that next guy is going to be everything that Mixon was. So, like, I think they'll be fine. I think it's probably equal, if not better. But I could see a world where it's a slight downgrade.
And probably star, too. I mean, I don't think the way Kennedy ended up playing, I don't think you're going to be able to get there.
That'd be an amazing job by the staff if they could just replace Kennedy with Carl Williams or someone like that.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think we both agree better.
Yeah.
Question from Lorenzo. Can you guys quickly snake draft for guys you would project to win the left guard and right tackle jobs?
Oh, God.
We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's just do, so right tackle, I said Nacho, so let's say that was my first pick. You had Wilson.
Yeah. I'll say after that, I'll say Zaire if we're doing snake draft.
Okay,
just
so
for
you
right tackle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Addison is your third, so I would go with... That's when it gets hard.
Yeah.
I'll go Ferguson fourth.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah, that's your pick now. Yeah.
I mean, left to me is Tofi or Bennett. I don't know. As much as I want to say Tofi, I'll just go with experience, given he's played the position Bennett.
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to say Tofi just because I like that, but yeah. All right, and then, left guard? That was the other one?
Left guard, we both had Utu, and Utu. Rogers is our second.
And then you go, God.
I mean, I think that's where, depending on what happens at tackle, you could easily see a Tofi or a Nacho push inside early in their career and play early.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if Nacho plays guard early in his career, like for his freshman year, maybe even sophomore year. Probably not sophomore year, depending on what Fox does at left tackle. But he'd be that's a huge body at left guard. Yeah, I could see Tofi or him being there.
Yeah. All right. Question from William. Over under Nasir Wyatt having 6.5 sacks in 2026. I think there's an incoming breakout year for, quote, third and Nas.
Over under 6.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think over. What did he have this year? 2 or 3?
Yeah, you'd need one every other game, basically.
Yeah, and I think Tatum had like 8 this year, and it wasn't even. I mean, he had a great season, but it wasn't like, oh my god, he had 8. Yeah, he can get over that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you just go by percentage of snaps that he was creating havoc and in the backfield and different things, I think if you just extrapolate the snaps he had times even 5 or 6, then he gets there pretty easily.
And they're going to play him more. I mean, without Blake Purchase in that strong side linebacker, third down rusher role, like they're going to play Nas more. I think he's just, yeah, I would definitely hammer that over.
Yep, right there with you. All right, last one. Where do the inside linebackers need to improve most, and do we have the talent in the room to improve versus last season where it was frankly one of our weaker groups? What's your confident level in Coach B, Mike? Is this a put up or shut up season for him?
They need to improve. I mean, Jeff would be harping on this, has harped on it. It's the run defense, just filling a hole, meeting someone in the hole, and not getting blown backwards. I think that's the first thing I want to see. Yeah, the pass coverage has been decent. Always stand to improve there, but I just want to see more physicality and just able to step into that A gap and just stop something.
Yeah.
That would be my number one point.
Yeah, I'd just say ability to quickly diagnose fire. Like the best linebackers you see are just like a step ahead. Like they are not necessarily the fastest, the quickest, the strongest, whatever, but they're beating linemen to their spot.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's out wide, in a hole, whatever it is. So I think that's point A, and then point B, like you mentioned, our run defense and specifically third and short, goal line, fourth and short isn't going to get better until we're the guy knocking people back. And that's not an easy thing to do. You know, you got a running back coming full speed at you and you've got 2 yards and they've, you know, ran 7 so far. It's hard to do that. That's not an easy ask, but I'd love to get to the spot where we can have a little more success there.
As far as B Mike goes, this is what, third year? Going into his third year with the program, I believe.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, put up or shut up year, like,
no.
Yeah, he's gotta show something, but it's not like if they are an average team this year at that position that he's like on the hot seat. I think he develops well. I think we saw development from Mixon. We saw development in me. He helped develop Bryce. We've seen him do a good job. They've just been injured. Like, it just happens. So, yeah.
Guys were freaking out about Drew for years there. They were wanting Maringer to get gone, and now you see what's happened in the tight end room. I think you got to give a guy, I mean, injuries are never a coach's fault. You got to give a guy a healthy room and a healthy offseason to be in the spot, and we don't know how things would look right now if Nix and Williams and Platt were healthy all fall. Maybe none of these conversations ever happen. So I think we just got to trust what's been done. I mean, and you got to give credit where it's been done. I mean, he took a walk-on in Bryce. We saw what Bryce became. He wasn't perfect, but he's a heck of a player. Jerry Mixon was not Jerry Mixon's not a highly rated recruit, 3-star guy. There were questions about, is he ever going to make an impact? He's clearly that guy in that room now, can get better, but certainly a good player. So it's not like the cupboard is bare. It's not like he hasn't done anything. And with a full, off-season of health, I think we'll see where things look come next fall. Agreed.
I've got one here from Hayward Hawk. Just curious if I actually don't know the answer to this, so I'm hoping you do, or else it'll be a short question. Curious if you know the payouts for Oregon, each of the 3 playoff games they played. Also, did they have to share those payouts with the other Big Ten schools?
I do not know the payouts.
Zero
they do
clue.
need to share them. They do need to share them. It's not like the ACC. So the ACC, Miami just had a bounty because they get to keep all the money. That was part of their new deal and part of the reason they get those top schools to stay. I know the Big Ten, you don't get an equal amount. So I don't know exactly how they divide it amongst 18. Let's say the number was 20 million. I know we get a little more than the other schools do. So I think they give the school that made it the bigger chunk, but then they divide the rest equally amongst all the other schools. So I don't think it's near the windfall a school like Miami got to where it's like making a real difference. I mean, you saw Miami get their 20 million and then suddenly the next day they're bringing in Mensah and his boys and signing a couple other guys. So it is certainly not that sweet of a deal for us.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, you got anything else?
Nope. I think that's good. We need some listeners to start sending us some gimmicks for this off season to get us through.
Sure, we got spring football coming in a little bit over a month, but we got some content to fill until then. So yeah, if you have ideas that you want us to talk about, again, obviously questions we'll answer, but draft ideas, some fun stuff, definitely let us know. We are all ears. We will plan to be on sometime next week, 2 weeks, somewhere around then. We'll come back on soon, but until then, check us out on YouTube. Find the Ducks Rising Podcast on Apple or Spotify, and if you'd be so kind, give us a rating and review. That really does, boost up the show, let more people see it, get more eyeballs on it. So in the offseason, we're really trying to push that. We thank all of you guys who listen to this and who are fans of the show. It means a ton, but make sure other people, just tell a friend, tell a family member. It takes everyone saying something to someone. So get that word of mouth going. Most importantly, go over to Lockerverse and check out Ducks Rising. Subscribe now and support the program. Let's rise together. We'll talk to you guys next week.